Good afternoon. I'm Ken Leon Guerrero, and welcome to My Point of View. Today's show is about the rough road ahead. And I say the rough road ahead is because here in the United States and on Guam, we seem to have lost our slideshow. Well, we're going to catch up. But anyway, in the United States and here on Guam, there's an acute housing problem. There's also an acute housing problem that's affecting many areas of the world right now, but here on Guam, our problem is a little unique because what we have is a population of people who are rapidly being priced out of affordable homes. When I say rapidly being priced out of affordable homes, just take a look around you. I have an apartment complex that I watch and I use as my bellwether. 10 years ago, a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment in this building in Tamuning rented for $500 a month. Now that same apartment is renting for $1,300 a month. Now I have to ask myself, what happened over the past 10 years to make that apartment worth $800 a month more than it was 10 years ago? And the answer is inflation. The cost of living here on Guam has practically doubled in the past 10 years. The cost of government of Guam has doubled in the 10 years. Because if you look back to the last days of the Calvo administration, we were dealing, 10 years ago we had a budget that was in the neighborhood of about $500 million to run government of Guam. And now that same budget today is running close to $1 billion. In fact, right now the legislature is debating a $1 billion budget. What has happened in those years? Inflation. And now we're at a situation here where everybody knows someone looking for a cheaper place to live and not finding it. And what happens to a lot of those people is they end up moving back with their parents. Okay, we're gonna, hold on one second. We're still live, I guess, and we need to do some technical stuff here. This is the beauty of live podcasting. You get to see what's going on behind the curtain. Is that working? You're not seeing it? All right, let me try again. Okay, we are in the process of reconfiguring our computer equipment on the fly. Well, still nothing there. All right, let's just go without the graphics. We can do this. We are Kandit. We can do this. All right, so we lost our computer right here. We don't know why, but I'm going to blame it on the earthquake because down in Santa Rita, I still don't have internet or phone or cable, and Docomo's blaming it on the earthquake. I'm going to do the same thing here. What we're looking at here is we have an affordable housing crisis that is driving our younger people away because the quality of life involves 3 things: food, shelter, clothing. So when we look at shelter being a very critical part here, being able to afford the roof over your head. Right now, the cost of living on Guam, in a research I did in 2017, the cost of living here on Guam was about $23 an hour to provide food, shelter, clothing, transportation, and utilities for a family of four. Since 2017, those numbers have jumped up dramatically. I haven't recalculated them. They're on my computer, but we lost the computer. But the short version is this. Every month, we are losing more and more of our younger people who can't find affordable housing. There are three reasons why they can't find affordable housing. We have a military presence that is growing. And as more military people come on island, they use their housing allowance to take more quality rental units off the market for extended periods of time. And because of their housing allowance, the rents have increased, which prices a lot of local people out of the market for those units. And as the cost of living goes up, driven by rent increases, the military housing allowance and cost of living allowance goes up. And then we have a perpetual money machine. As the cost of living goes up, the rents go up. As the rents go up, the housing allowance goes up. As the housing allowance goes up, the rents go up. And in the meantime, the people who live here who are not getting a cost of living allowance or a housing allowance are being forced into different areas of the island. But we only build 100 units a year. So what's happening is the people who can relocate, and I say this as I know many people have relocated, and those of you watching, you probably have friends or family have relocated to the mainland in search of a better quality of life, more opportunity, and more affordable housing. What does that leave here for the rest of us? Those who cannot take our skills to the mainland or do not have the money to go to the mainland to start our lives over again are carrying a larger burden of the cost of government. Now remember, 10 years ago, we were looking at a $500 million budget. Today, we're looking at a $1 billion budget. Between 2010 and 2020, our population has dropped. And since the pandemic, our population has dropped even further. The people that are leaving are those with the higher incomes and the skill sets that can afford the taxes. So what does that mean? Unless the federal government is going to keep dropping billions of dollars of aid on this island, our politicians are not doing the best they can for the people of Guam. And I say that because over the past 10 years, we've documented less than 1,000 new housing units have been built. Think about that. Every year we have 25 to 3,000 children born. Every year between 2,500 and 3,000 young adults graduate from our education system, and yet we're only building 100 homes a year. That's why we have an affordable housing crisis on this island. If I had my computer, I'd show you an island shot of Singapore, which is the same size as Guam. I mean, we're 212 square miles, they're 222 square miles. We have a population of 153, they have a population of 5.6 million. And when you look at the two islands from space, Singapore, you can see, is about 80% built out. When you look at Guam, we're about 20% built out. So what's the difference? Singapore's 5.6 million, nearly 90% of those people have equity ownership in their own home. We can't say that here on Guam. So what we need to do is we need to realize that this is an election year, and we need to make this a question we ask every candidate for office, including me. Full disclosure, I am a candidate, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the affordable housing crisis. The affordable housing crisis is driven by lack of political will to do the things necessary to ensure that we, the people of Guam, have access to ownership in quality, affordable housing units. That's why for years I have been talking about this. Since 2017 is the first time I went to the legislature on this issue. Since then, 5 years, we have not seen any effort by politicians to address the affordable housing issue. So while Banning plastic bags may be a big thing for them. For the majority of the people of Guam, home ownership would be a bigger thing. And if we were to embrace the kinds of policies, and we have the land to do it, we have the tools to do it, we don't have the political will to do it yet, but we need to elect a new generation of politicians who are willing to look at outside the box and embrace the kind of policies that Singapore did that ended up with over nearly 90% of their population having equity ownership in their own home. Because equity ownership is going to be something that will give our children a reason to stay here, live here, and raise their families here, and help stem the flow of our young people away from Guam to the United States. Housing is a big deal. It's right after food, air, water, housing. Those are four things that we all need to live, but unfortunately, way too many of us do not have access to the affordable housing. I'm Ken Leon Guerrero. This abbreviated version is brought to you today by the fact that we don't have our computer systems up and running, so I can't get into the detail. But if you've been following the news, you know that they've been documenting our elderly. In the Guam Daily Post, they ran a story about elderly people living in their vans. We have a single mother living out on the streets, raising her daughter out on the street. In another story, we also had a story about homeless veterans. And we also, unfortunately, had a story about a woman who was living on the street that passed away on Route 16 near Micronesia Mall. Housing issues. There have been a lot of studies done that show that homelessness costs, in the case of Reno, Oakland, and Los Angeles, a homeless person ends up costing society about $80,000 a year. What if we could provide safe, quality housing for everybody and help break the growing tide of homelessness here on the island and give our young families a reason to stay here? This is an election year. Talk to all the candidates running and ask them to give you details on what their plan is for affordable housing. It's right up there with crime and public health. Those are three things that we need to address, and we need to address them sooner than later. I'm Ken Leon Guerrero. This is my point of view. Thank you for watching today, and we'll be back again next week with another issue to discuss, especially during this season of political change.